Hello, my friends. Coming at you with a little video here. Having myself a cup of coffee. I tried to make a video of building this Game Boy. It was previously a black Game Boy that I put a little picture on my Instagram page about. Instagram page is Jello_mods. If you ever want to check out some of the stuff I build. It's nothing crazy, but it's just me being a hobbyist. People have done cooler shit, but hey, whatever. I like what I'm doing. Anyway, I just finished building this Squirtle Game Boy Advance SP. Basically, just refurbished it out of an old one that just had an old screen with a shitty non-backlit, but more like side-lit architecture that they were using when they initially developed the SP. But I put a new IPS screen in here, a V5 IPS screen. I put in a Funny Plaything battery. And I thought, since I said I'd make a video, I did try to do the refurbishment on video, but I ran into some obstacles. The hinges are really hard to do on these things. So I damn near broke the shell getting the hinges out and putting them back in correctly. I had to troubleshoot that. It did make good for good viewing. It definitely in the future when I'm making a teardown video or a refurbishment video like this, I'm gonna have to have some editing skills in order to make it work when we have malfunctions like that. But whatever, doesn't matter. I got the hinges worked out. And I'm basically here just to show this finished guy off. As you can see, we got a little cool Squirtle graphic on the front there. I like it. The quality's pretty decent. I think it looks all right. I like the clear blue shell. It's looking pretty good. This one did not come with these little red caps. I actually fished those out of my own pile of spare parts from a red Game Boy. And yeah, because I'd messed it. The ones that came with it were transparent blue, but I had damaged those when I was fixing things up. As you can see here, I got a new battery with a higher capacity in the back there, 950 milliamps. I think that's what it says. Yeah, 950 milliamp hours. From Funny Plaything. I believe the original batteries were like 600 milliamps, so this should give it like 1.5 times. Got the sticker on the back here for a little authenticity. Still got a bubble there, but we'll work that guy out. Squirtle's looking good. I guess I'll fire this bad boy up for a second here. I got the cool white border display. I thought that looked pretty good with the membranes being white and whatnot. But let's fire it up. The battery's looking low, but that's okay. We'll get her. Sometimes if you fiddle with the power button, it will make it go back to green. So with the display, once I get into the game here, I got Breath of Fire. Let me see if I can change the brightness of the game because it's looking a little bit, what do you say, oversaturated, I guess, maybe? Brighter and brighter. That's the lowest brightness setting right there, which I think might actually end up being the best one for seeing it on the video here. What if there we go. All right, the other thing here is we can keep getting it brighter. And one of the other things we can do, I think there's 10 brightness settings. You can also hold down the brightness button. You can change it to the different settings manually through here. So it looks like there's, damn, here we go. I think maybe 4 is good. So each press, it will, change the option. You can long press it to move it to the next option. Looks like it has 4, like 10 color modes. Yeah, looks like it. And then we can pop down and you can actually do a pixel effect if you want, couple different pixel effects. I think vertical line, full pixel, horizontal, and then your default. I'm going to leave it at default for now. And I'm not sure what... I'm just going to let this guy close out on his own. So right now I'm at a point in the game where I'm going to get blue in my party, actually. I do believe this display looks wonderful, honestly. I got another little guy floating around over here that I'll pop in a minute. Dragon Warrior 3, and as you guys might know, that was a recent release. I got a little bit to say about it, I guess. There's a lot of controversy, and some people will pretend there isn't. Some people online, because they want it. They're the people that are like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal that they changed stuff. But here's the thing. The first thing that bothers me about that is, I don't know if you guys know, if you're not familiar, but they did change Akira Toriyama's art. In a few ways. Like, they pretty much put pants and undershirts on the females, mainly the female warrior artwork that's floating around. Let's see, Pro Shield. I think somebody might be able to use that. Not the boss man. Nina? No. Karn? There we go. Yeah, so the female, it's pretty much just the art, because like the pixelized characters, it's gonna be hard to see. That's not gonna translate through. You're not gonna see if they're wearing pants. Maybe you are. I don't know. It'd probably be hard to see. But to be honest, I'm not trying to jerk off to this game. I don't really ever care about the fan service stuff. That's not what bothers me. The aspect of it that was censored that bothered me was that they changed Akira Toriyama's art for the ogres. And if you've played any Dragon Quest games, you know that the ogres have kind of like highlighted, exaggerated lips that are a different color from the rest of their skin tone. Just like any human, really, or anything with lips. Not necessarily humans, but humans, that is the case. Anybody, your lips are going to be usually a different color from your skin. But I digress. Anyway, some people decided that the lips being a different color, they decided that that was racist, right? And here's the underpinning notion here is some people decided that these ogres look like black people. And to them, I would say, they're the damn racists. That shit's ridiculous. I've played so much Dragon Quest, and I've fought so many ogres. And I never once did I stop and go, damn, the ogres look like black people. Because, like, not only is their skin green, they don't have the same proportions as a human. They're all bald. It's like nothing about them looks like black people in any way. But they've construed that the lips do, right? So, here we are. So now they've just decolorized the lips. They just made the lips the same color as the rest of the ogre's body. Which is whatever. It's not like it's game ruining. It is what it is. So those two things. No skin showing. And the ogres had their lips changed. And it's like, all right, whatever. That's not the end of the world. But the thing that really bothers me about it is the whole throwing in the body type A, body type B instead of male and female when you're selecting your character. To me, that's a classic game. Like, If it was a modern game, if it was like Cyberpunk 2077, sure, I could see it, because a big part of that game is body modifications, whatever. Big part of that world. But you look at something like Dragon Quest, and it's a remake of a classic game, man. It does. Ox's punches are always real satisfying. Yeah. It's a remake of a classic game. There isn't any there isn't any gender theory themes in the game. There's no gender bending themes at all. It's a classic old school game. It doesn't need any of those modern twists, these modern fads. It doesn't need to have gender theory shoehorned into it. And to me, it's so weird that Square is doing this with some of their legacy titles, SquareEnix, because you'd think they'd learn by now, but the thing is, it's like they've got to be making their bread and butter off these remakes and remasters. Don't fuck with it, is what I say. Like, this is where you're going to get the surefire purchases from your legacy audience. The legacy audience that you've been turning your back on consistently. It's like, yeah, Final Fantasy 16 sales weren't great. You know why? Because you turned your back on your legacy audience, so they weren't there for it. I bet you a lot of them were, but a lot of them were like, oh, this is an action combat game. It's like Devil May Cry. I'm good, I'm good. I don't want to play something like that. Or they tried the demo and they were like, I mean, thankfully you all offered a demo, which was cool, but I bet you a lot of those players played the demo and they said to themselves, this is not the Final Fantasy I'm looking for. And either they heard from word of mouth what it was like, or they saw online and they decided that that wasn't for them. And that's the reality of it. And it's true, because the sales weren't great for Final Fantasy 16. They didn't hit the mark. And on top of that, yeah, Zombie 2, that spell fucking rules when you're actually fighting dead shit. They weren't hitting the mark. They weren't making the sales they wanted to make with Final Fantasy 16. And they didn't hit the mark with Final Fantasy 7 Remake. They didn't hit the sales that they wanted. And to me, a big part of that reason is because they turned their back on their legacy audience. They also, just RPG players at large, because there are more than, not everybody who's into RPGs is just plays Final Fantasy. There's some people that are into RPGs that don't play Final Fantasy games at all. And because, Final Fantasy lost them at some point. Who knows which one it was. A lot of people got lost in 13. A lot of people got lost when it came to Final Fantasy 14. They didn't like online games, right? But either way, you're losing people. You lost people with the action-oriented combat, as much as some of these fanboys would tell you otherwise, or would like to have you believe. A lot of people left before that, and a lot of people left after that, right? So the sales aren't hitting the mark. So you think that these legacy titles that they're remastering, remaking, re-releasing in whatever capacity, that's going to be where they're going to make their money off their old fans. And when you start messing with those legacy titles and you start messing with the old fans like this, because damn well, they have to know, unless they're completely out of touch, these consulting groups have got them by the balls in some ways, because if they are out of touch with it, they have to realize that their legacy audience is going to be an older audience, which means they're even less likely to be interested in gender theory topics and more likely to be driven away as a result of it, or at least upset, even if you don't manage to drive them away. So there's already that line of logic operating here. So, I mean, and here's the thing. You put this crap into these games, and people are going to be less likely to buy your future drops of remasters of older games. Like, at this point, I don't even want, in their current state, I don't even want Square Enix to redo Chrono Trigger, because who knows what sorts of stupid shit they're going to shoehorn into that in order to virtue signal for that ESG money. And it's just like, didn't they make enough ESG money, like, fucking up AAA titles? Like, they fucked up all their X-Men games. They fucked up Final Fantasy 16. I mean, that only had some gay stuff in it. Bahamut was apparently gay, which was completely pointless. And his partner being gay, that character was literally in it to be a token gay man. There was nothing. He was literally there to fucking kiss dude on the lips and then exit stage right, never to be seen again, okay? Like, that character was a non-character. He was... That's always the problem with DEI too. It tokenizes everybody. The reason they're there becomes their sexuality. The reason they're there becomes their skin color. That's the exact opposite, I thought, of what's trying to be achieved. So you put these characters in, and they're literally just tokenized characters most of the time. And in a lot of cases, pretty much ruin the game. Like, I don't know why people thought this, but for Forspoken, people thought they were going to get some kind of, like, single-player fucking Terra from Final Fantasy VI gaming experience. Which, don't get me wrong, something like that would have been cool. But the fact that they had to, like, have this urbanite, empowered female of color to be the one that was the main character. They literally could have just made her anybody else, or just not tried to go for the whole urban appeal there, because the tokenism's ridiculous. It's like, what? She's completely poor and fucking living in rags, but Lord knows when you're in her apartment before the beginning of the game kicks off, she definitely has a shoe collection of, like, high tops and Nike-ass looking shoes, which is totally just a racial stereotype. And and these idiots, they're so ham-fisted that they think this shit is representation when it's just stereotyping and shoehorning people, and they can't see it. And tokenizing people, they just can't see it. So it's like, even this whole process of trying to gain these ESG points and get the brownie points for the extra free money, I don't understand it. Their shit can stand on its own merits. Dragon Quest III is not selling more copies because you changed it to body type A and body type B. And it's like a lot of YouTubers have said, like, people aren't coming out. The people that are complaining about this shit aren't the ones coming out and buying these games. They're tourists. They come in, they don't have any money, so they just watch videos on YouTube about it and fucking make a stink. And even the people that write articles, it's like in a previous video, I talked about how I went to college for the same shit as these dipshits. I just didn't choose that career. But all these people went to college for worthless English degrees and lit degrees and journalism degrees, and they weren't taught how to do anything except for write critical essays. And where the hell are you going to find a job writing critical essays? For video game magazines, criticizing games and game stories. So it's like all of these people went with their useless degrees. They went and got jobs in the video game industry. where they could continue the weird activism that was pummeled into their brains when they were in college, because all it was indoctrination. That's part of the reason I hated college so much and struggled to finish it, is because they just kept indoctrinating, and they weren't teaching me any job skills. They weren't teaching me how to use a degree in English to acquire a job that wasn't going to just be shilling bullshit and towing the line for some executive running the company and just pushing whatever political talking point your overlords, your bosses want you to talk about, and getting swept up into this entire ridiculous conversation about erasing gender. Anyway, point being, none of these older players want this shit in their games. And it's going to be the older players that are buying these legacy titles, these remasters and remakes. I have a 13-year-old nephew, and then I have two nieces. One is 11, one is 9. I think I got all those right. My brother will correct me if I'm wrong if he ever watches this video, but that's pretty much their ages. And I'll tell you what, like his 13-year-old, he plays video games. He doesn't give a shit about Dragon Quest. Doesn't give a shit about any of these legacy titles, these remakes that are coming out. He's never played any of them. Doesn't care. None of his friends care. They don't give a shit. And kids generally don't give a shit. It's mostly adults buying this stuff. So this is what boggles my mind. I would wager to say it's like 95% adults buying this shit. And that's what boggles my mind. It's like, who cares about the ESRB? Who cares about the censorship? Nobody cares about any of that shit. And then on top of that, the worst thing about it is if you think kids are actually playing it, and then you're knowingly putting this this confusing gender rhetoric in there, full well knowing that it's going to be kids playing these games, or you believe it's going to be kids playing the games, that's already another fucked up conversation in and of itself. But it's like, to put this gender theory into the game in the first place and then be worried about the age demographic that it's going to be able to reach because of too much skin showing. So you're willing to contribute to confusing young people about their gender roles, but you don't, God forbid they see any exposed skin. You don't want, we don't want that. But it's okay for you to sit and wonder, like, why aren't there girls and boys? What does that mean? And then somebody gets to jump in and tell you, oh, honey, there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum when it comes to gender. They can come and tell you that. That's what it really is opening the conversation for, right? So it seems hypocritical to me that you're going to protect the children from overexposure to sexual images, but you don't mind potentially confusing their concept of gender and sexuality. That's fine. That's acceptable. But anyway, Square, like, whatever. Whatever, man. You do you. At the end of the day, I just want you to stop fucking with these games. If you're going to put out a 2D HD Chrono Trigger, it better only have, like, add the dungeons from the DS version, even though they weren't really that good. Add the dungeons from the DS version. Maybe add a few more, like, end game side quests, whatever. Add some cool stuff like that, but leave the core story and all the original endings the same. Leave the core character designs and all of the characters the same. Leave all the dialogue the same. There were very few errors in that game. I can't think of any off the top of my head. In terms of either translation errors or just straight up typographical errors or anything like that. So leave that alone. Leave it alone and release it in its original state, and just add a few bells and whistles. But none of the gender theory. No gender theory. Don't cover up Isla. She's the only character that's like semi-exposed. Don't put. She's fucking from 65 million BC. How are you going to explain putting pants on her? They didn't have textiles. Just leave that shit alone if you're going to release that game or any other classics. But that's your bread and butter, man, and your legacy audience is your bread and butter. And you keep turning your back on your legacy audience, and then when you need money and you decide to drop a remake just to squeeze a little bit out of your legacy people, then you're going to throw in this gender theory bullshit that you know none of them wants. It's just bad moves on all fronts. You keep pushing customers away, and it's like you don't even realize it somehow. I don't know what these consultants are filling your heads with over there, but it's like I know that now Square has its own division for cultural sensitivity, whatever, but they need to cut it out. They just need to make games for Japanese people and then also sell them to the people in the West, because what made people fall in love with your games in the first place were the Japanese sensibilities. The fact that it was made by a different culture adds to that feeling of adventure. It adds to that feeling that you're going to another place, because it's those little cultural differences that lends to the illusion, is what they don't realize. Because somebody else created it, it enhances the illusion of you being in a completely different land, because the sentiments are different. The way they tell jokes are different. It's all very Japanese. And what we fell in love with about the games was the fact that they were very Japanese. And you think about it, role-playing games was the Japanese imitating and emulating something that they discovered over here, which was Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing. They tried to digitize that. That's what they did. So they took something from us and then they put their culture into it. And that's what made it beautiful. When they gave it back to us, when they sold it back to us, it was like, this is awesome. It's like the shit we created, like the stuff we like, but it has this Japanese spin to it. And that's what everybody loved. So it's like, for you guys to try to erase that for the sake of like making your games more palatable to a different audience, I think is ridiculous. You should stay true to yourself. That's what's going to create authentic art, and it's going to make people love your stuff. That's what made people love your stuff, even the shit that you thought was mediocre or didn't seem important to you. It was important to your fans. I'm about to have the best character join me, Blue. But yeah, they keep dumping on the legacy audience like this, and it's not cool. Oh, Lord. Yeah, I got to go to the underwater volcano, I believe. So yeah, and I'm very much of the mind that I'm not a huge fan of. I wasn't a fan of Final Fantasy 16. I couldn't finish it, and I bought it twice. I bought it digitally, and I bought it physically, and never opened it physically. I got I think it was like the day one deluxe, whatever the hell version of it was. It wasn't the super deluxe version, but it was like the day one release that came with like an art book and some other crap. Very cool packaging, very cool fan service in that department, but unfortunately, I just didn't really like the game very much. I beat Bahamut, and I lost interest. And I know that sounds crazy to some of you guys, but that mostly sounds crazy to those of you all who Final Fantasy 16 was like baby's first Final Fantasy, you know, like, and everybody who thinks that game is awesome is pretty much, for the most part, younger people who've barely played any Final Fantasy. And that's great. That means Square succeeded in finding their their younger audience. But at what cost, right? Because they're going to lose all their legacy players. They really should have branched Final Fantasy out into 2 different franchises. They should have made 16 its own thing. They should have just made it its own thing, a spin-off, whatever, a spin-off series, just like Strangers in Paradise or whatever the hell that one was called. They should have made it its own thing, and then they could have just continued doing releases and having them be like action-oriented Final Fantasy games. Okay, I think I just saved, right? I was talking too much. And a lot of people think that, oh, you know what's going to save Final Fantasy? This hybrid combat system from Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I honestly, I don't think that that's going to save the franchise. All right, we're putting Dragon Quest in here. I really don't think that that's going to save the franchise. Final Fantasy VII didn't sell enough, and part of the problem with that is 3 parts, man. First of all, it wasn't never going to fly all that well with your legacy people. It was probably going to just divide all the legacy people in the first place, so you're dividing everybody even more, right? How's it looking wide? It's looking pretty donked wide. Yeah, I'm not into it. Let's see, right now I'm in this cave dungeon. I'm trying to save this sleeping village that got cursed. And everybody was put to sleep. So I'm trying to... I had to go to this elf village, and they told me that somebody from the village that was put to sleep had eloped with the elven princess and stolen this red ruby. And because they did this, the elves put everybody to sleep. And they don't fucking like humans either. So right now, I was just trying to figure out... They didn't... Okay, here we go. Somewhere in this cave is a sacred spring that will restore you, but why would it even exist? I've heard dismal calls in here. Interesting. Okay. Well, this is clearly not the spring. I'm trying to see... This cave was right by the Elven village, so I'm assuming that the elopers may be in here. I'll turn this down a touch. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that this new combat system will necessarily save Final Fantasy. And I don't think, if they make Final Fantasy 17 anytime soon, I really don't think that they're going to continue with the Final Fantasy 7 system like everybody wants them to. I think it's going to be another action combat game, and I think they're going to build on the mechanics that they established in 16. If I was a betting man, I would bet that that is what they're doing. Got a little smudge on the screen there. But if I was a betting man, clean this up a little bit. Can't stand it. Yeah, if I was a betting man, I would say I'm going to change its brightness, making it a little hard to see the... There we go. Maybe one touch up. Yeah. Yeah, if I was a betting man, I'd say they're going to continue what they started with 16. And they're just going to expand on that combat system, right? So yeah, sorry I couldn't deliver the fix video, but it is what it is. It was just, there was too much fuckery. Too much of me off camera, too much of me not talking. And it's like I've been saying, these are just practice videos anyway. And I feel like I do better when I just kind of play a low impact game like this and just chat. This might be something I do a little more often. I don't really know how much people like watching actual handheld gameplay. But I mean, this is what my hobby is mostly about these days. Is like refurbishing handhelds, modifying them, and playing these old games. I mean, of course, I play my PS5 a lot. You guys know, but my heart lies in fixing these old consoles up, breathing new life into them, and playing the awesome games for them, and continuing to collect the awesome games. And really love the fan translation, hard copies of games. It's like new games are coming out for the Game Boy Color. Not to mention Incubate games. They're great. I need to buy something from them again soon. Oh my god, Jello. No! This is bullshit. Let's kill these I didn't realize my boy was dying. Alright, well... Shit. Thank goodness I learned outside recently. I don't think I'm gonna have to cast return here. We're gonna go to this town. I gotta get it's old school, man. You gotta go get your guys revived at the church, at least until somebody learns the revive spell. Damn it, where the hell is the church? I think it's over here. Nope, it's not over there. It's over here. All these towns are organized differently. There we go. Yes. Yes. Bring my boy back. Uh-huh. Excuse me. Oh, no. We don't like that. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. I watch a lot of videos like the Night Sky Prince. I like the guy. I'm not talking shit about anybody, but I hear a lot of stuff on his channel, people talking about the Final Fantasy 7 or 6, my bad, Final Fantasy 7 remake game engine combat system. They think that that's going to save the series. I think what's going to save the series is for the people in charge to get their heads out of their asses and remember that they're making games. Like, Final Fantasy started getting way too serious right around after Final Fantasy 7. The games started getting entirely too serious. Like, there's still some levity in Final Fantasy 8, but for the most part, that game's pretty serious. And in 9, they kind of came back. It was a return to form a bit, although, their affiliation with Disney, I felt, was kind of showing at that point. Because it had a very Disney vibe. Like, it was after they made their debut Kingdom Hearts, and honestly, I think that changed Square Enix a bit back at the time, their design sensibilities and stuff. But I think when it comes to modern day, they need a return to form. I think if they made the new Final Fantasy like 2D HD, but they took a look at some of these some of the things people are doing with pixel graphics these days, if they really made a cool looking pixelated 2D HD game that could run on every console, because I think that was where they lost the most. If they would have built Final Fantasy 16 to run on the Switch, if they would have come out, and I'm not saying 16 as in its current form, like the action combat oriented style. If they would have made it a more traditional style game that could work on every console. And here's the thing. I think games like Metaphor, Refantasio, however the hell you want to say it. I think that those... damn it. I went the wrong way. I think those games have kind of showed us, or that game has showed us, that there is a way to blend strategic combat. I'm not going to call it turn-based combat even, because it needs to be reconceptualized, rebranded. Strategic combat, I think that the combination of action and strategic combat is good. I think that, like, once enemies are weak enough, being able to cut them down like that is an awesome concept, and I think it's a good evolution that could be expanded on, right? But if they would have made a more traditional style RPG with a blend of action and turn-based combat, because I do think that that's the key. I don't know if it's necessarily the Final Fantasy VII combat system, but I do think that that's the key. Is combat that's going to be a mix of the two. If they would have made it so that it ran on the Switch, they wouldn't have failed. Because I don't think that 16 is necessarily a bad game. Maybe it's a bad game for legacy players. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I don't think it's bad, though, objectively. If you strip away the expectations legacy players might have had, I think it's an objectively good game. Besides some of the little mechanical problems, if you ask me, like the fact that it doesn't matter what element you use against any of the enemies. There's no real elemental or weakness system at play in that. Little flaws like that, or the fact that you don't really need to use all the abilities in the game. You can just kind of pick a few, and that could be the whole damn game for you. The fact that there's no dungeons in the game. The fact that there's no party members and that the equipment doesn't matter. All of those things I think are flaws. But I don't think it's fundamentally a bad game. I gotta say, like, the animations for these monsters are pretty incredible on here. Like, and it's funny that this is something that continued on in all the games, because, the monsters don't have any idling animations when they're standing still. They're, like, frozen in place. But one of them attacks, like, they have very intricate attack animations, which I think is cool. And the animations look awesome. Man, this is doing something crazy to the screen. I kind of like that carried on through the other Dragon Quest games, where the enemies are, like, perfectly still until they attack, and then they move. But in the newer ones, they have very slight idle animations. But yeah, getting back to topic, if they would have made a Final Fantasy that worked on every console, and it was a blend of action and strategic combat, I think it would have worked well. And like I said, I don't think that 16 was a fundamentally bad game. It's just that when it first came out, not enough people had PS5s for what the game cost to make. Not enough people had. There wasn't enough PS5s out there that even if everybody fucking bought the game that had a PS5, they still wouldn't have made enough money for how much they spent, I bet. And I don't know that for sure, but there wasn't enough PS5s out there for people, for it to make up for it, for there to be enough copies sold. If it would have been on the Switch console, everybody would have fucking bought it. Or if they would have at least released it for PC, day one or whatever as well. But at the same time, that just still is just pissing all over PS5 and current gen exclusivity. That's been the biggest problem with this console generation, man. Like, it wouldn't have really mattered that much if I didn't buy a PS5. I would have missed out on like 4 or 5 games out of the hundreds that were available. So, to me, I think going forward, if the next Final Fantasy 17, whatever Nintendo releases for the Switch 2, whatever it ends up being called, that should be the console that they concentrate on. Okay, what's up with this? There was 2 stairways in the other room. Sick. Tiny metal. What's this? Word. So this must be the right way. Excellent. What's up with this? Yeah, whatever Nintendo puts out next, that should be the primary console that they focus on for development for Final Fantasy 17. But who knows? Knowing Square Enix, they're due for another online game, so I wouldn't be surprised if they just made a new MMO for 17. Oh, this is the healing word. You know what? I might just call it right there. Bam. So I guess to conclude, I think that the pandering to the woke ideologies needs to stop. I think that shit's on the way out anyway. And this whole inclusivity, all of this stuff, like, just is nothing but an automatic backfire. And you end up being more racist than you ever were in the first place, just hiring people out of merit and just giving people opportunities out of their own merits. Because then you end up just doing everything specifically because of people's skin colors, backgrounds, sexual disposition, that ends up being the reason for everything every choice you make, which that's not the way it should be. So yeah, just to recap, I don't think that Square should pander to these ideologies. I don't think any of these companies should. They just should stay true to their creative directives, not worry about cultural sensitivity, focus on being Japanese, not on being everything else for everybody else. So the censorship, it needs to go. It's like, whatever, I guess. I don't give a shit about the fan service. I'm talking about the weird shit where you think black people look like trolls, and the weird shit where you're trying to push your gender theory into something as simple as selecting a male or female character. You don't have to be able to give the male characters a female voice or give the female characters a male voice. That shit right there, you're not fooling anybody. We know exactly what that is. That's the gender bending, gender theory, gender's a spectrum, fucking horse shit. So for them to sit there and, look at the ground and shuffle around and pretend like they don't know what they're doing or it's not what you think it is, that's fucking bullshit. It's exactly what people think it is. So nobody's being fooled by that crap. And here's the thing. Keep it out of the legacy titles. If you're doing remakes, keep it out of the legacy titles. Nobody wants that shit in there, especially... It's going to be older people buying the shit. Spoiler alert, kids don't buy the shit, man. Kids don't buy those games. Hardly any do. Somebody should look into this. Maybe I will. Yeah, nobody wants that in the legacy titles. Keep it out of the legacy titles. If you must have it, then relegate it at least to original new titles. And here's a crazy thought. Maybe only include it if there's actually themes surrounding those concepts in the game, okay? I mean, you can organically have a trans character, I guess. Why not? You know, it's happened in the past, been there in the past. That's been something in anime since the dawn of anime. And the concept of ladyboys has been around forever. But please just keep it out of the legacy titles and don't piss off your legacy audience even more. And if you're going to make new titles, I mean, I guess whatever. In a lot of ways, I've mostly given up on Square's new stuff. But for their new titles, I'm going to say, take it a step back. It doesn't need to be the most current gen graphics. Just go back to your roots. What made your game fun? Your game's fun. What made your games fun was like the tactical combat, elemental-based weaknesses, equipment, having a variety of it, making it matter, having a party, having strategies surrounding those party members, having those party members have jobs, specific things they do in combat that lend to the strategy. You know, simple shit like that. That's the kind of stuff that I think you guys should focus on, that Square Enix should focus on. You know, open letter to them, you guys. But in the new titles, they need to just, for 17, if they don't make an MMO, they just need to focus on the Switch 2 or whatever Nintendo hardware comes up, because that's going to be, the most people are going to have that shit. And that's how you're going to sell it. And you see the popularity of 2D HD stuff. Fucking make Final Fantasy 17 2D HD. That's like I was saying, from the ground up, just like Octopath Traveler. But make it more grandiose. The characters don't have to be little chibi sprites. They can be full-ass characters like fucking King of Fighters style. That's pixel art too, remember? Doing something like that would be fucking sick, especially if they did the lighting right and did everything right. Awesome. Not to mention, you look at Expedition 33, or you think back to the, what was it? Not The Last Story, although that's a fucking excellent game. Lost Odyssey. Those games, having the AAA graphics with the turn-based combat is awesome. And here's the thing. You could afford to have those kind of graphics with turn-based combat and make it affordable, just like Expedition 33, because that game's not AAA. You can make that shit affordable because guess what? You don't have to worry about the ridiculous amount of physics and all the movement that the character's going to make in an action-oriented game. So you can make it look amazing and not have to pay up the ass for it. But I digress. I still think a pixel art style 2D HD game with really detailed sprites would be fucking sick. And I think that that would sell, and something like that would work on a weaker console like the Switch 2, you know? I guess that's the recap. And let's see, one last thing. We'll go through some recent acquisitions. I got King of Monsters 2. That was a recent pickup. Awesome game. I got Primal Rage, which I also picked it up for the Game Gear. I picked up the Game Gear version too. I've got ActRaiser 2 to go along with my copy of ActRaiser 1, so now I've got both of them. And almost all of Enix's games for the SNES. I've got the original King of Monsters, kicking it right there. I've got Earthworm Jim, which was one of my... probably my favorite Earthworm Jim was just the original, and I think it's great on the Super Nintendo, so I was happy about getting that guy. Oh, let's see. And the last one, but not least, I don't know if any of you guys have ever played this game, but Harley's Humongous Adventure, pretty awesome action platformer, where you play as this goofy-ass scientist dude who's a rockin' dude. Look at him with his shades, holding a thumbtack. Anyway... It's a cool game where basically every level is just you being tiny in different parts of the house and stuff like that. Very cool. Maybe I'll make a video about that one at some point. But anyway, yeah. I didn't buy Dragon Warrior 3 HD 2D Remake. Instead, a few months back, I picked up Dragon Warrior 3 for the Game Boy Color, which I'm currently playing through, as you can see. And I decided I was going to play through this one. I'll probably pick up the 2D HD Remaster either way, because I'm still going to support Square Enix. I'm still going to support the 2D HD remakes. I still want to see Chrono Trigger eventually. But I'm just not going to buy it. I wasn't going to buy it on release. I didn't want to buy it on release because I didn't think I'd end up finishing the Game Boy Color version if I got that version first. So that's kind of the long and skinny of it. There's my feelings about the state of Final Fantasy yet again, kind of just reiterating. I know I talked about it a bit in another video, but I got a few views on that one. I got almost almost 200, or wait, I got like over 200 views, which was crazy. So I'm going to see if maybe another discussion video like this, um, gaming and discussing video, maybe it'll get a few views again. Who knows if I give it the right title. But anyway, if you stayed this long and watched it all, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the little bit of gameplay of Breath of Fire and Dragon Warrior 3. Give me a little thumbs up if you found any of it entertaining, and like, I don't know, leave me a comment. Tell me what a douchebag I am or how wrong I am on my takes and opinions. And anything you want to type down there, really. Just have at it, friends. But anyway, I'm going to get off here. I might make another video later playing some game. Maybe F-Zero. Who knows? But y'all take care, and we'll see you next time. J-Lord out.